So the sweater could be a cardigan. The hat could be an old frayed baseball hat. The claws could have huge blades on them like Wolverine or little tiny sharp nails on them. It could be leather fetish. It could be S&M bondage-ish. We don't know.
Now, going back to the origins just of this project when it first came to you, was it something that like took you by surprise that someone wanted to, make this documentary? I thought it was more, well, it's about time he gets a documentary.
Well, I don't think it was about it's about time somebody's talking about me. No, I've been approached by various people with different kind of, ideas and designs on how to do something, and, when the guys from Cult Screenings, Gary Smart and Chris Griffins approached me, I was feeling them out a bit, and within minutes, literally, I realized that these guys were fanboys like me, not just of genre, not just of horror and science fiction and, fantasy films, but that they also loved all movies, all kinds of movies, and they're so quick and they're so smart. They're kind of like having, your own personal IMDb right with you whenever you're wherever you are. So I was able to like we'd be talking and I was feeling them out a bit and I was like talking about Hammer films and there was some actor I couldn't quite remember and who am I talking about? And they go, "You mean Herbert Lom?" And I go, "Yes, Herbert Lom and he did Phantom of the Opera. Excuse me, and he did this and that." Not just the Pink Panther films, or I'd be talking about one of my favorite, early '70s actors, or late '60s actors, in Peckinpah movies or something, and they go, "Oh, yeah, you're talking about Warren Oates," and I go, "Yes, Warren Oates, I love Warren Oates," and then I could tell an old Warren Oates story from an old television series that I discovered him on when I was a kid, and Strother Martin, they were just always there for me, and had my back, and I knew that that they would have my back, and then we sort of laid the ground rules, and my idea was, "Look it, this is not a movie about a great talent here, it's a movie about a survivor, and if you guys see it that way, a character actor who survived for 50 years, and it's literally this month is literally my 50th year starring in movies in Hollywood, that would be okay with me. I mean, if you wanna do a movie about talent, go find Daniel Day-Lewis, I'm a survivor, hills and valleys, ups and downs, good stuff, bad stuff, and, they sort of saw that, and, I didn't have any say in or even knowledge of who they were interviewing or who would, my colleagues that they approached or stuff. I suggested a couple of clips, being a man's man, I wanted one of my fight scenes in there. I think I also wanted a dance montage from a couple of my silly little dance moves that I did in Strangeland and a couple other films, but I think fortunately they chose not to do a Robert Englund dances.
The sequel. Yeah, it'll be the sequel.
Yeah, maybe in the sequel. But I was thinking of these funny little, jigs I did and funny little, kind of like that awkward dance step that, Elaine does on Seinfeld. I spent times when I did that, and there were several I thought might be fun edited together, but I think they were wise not to do that. But, yeah, I just felt comfortable, with Gary and Chris, and, it's hard for actors to watch themselves in movies or guest starring on TV or cable or streaming, but it's even harder watching a documentary about yourself. Aside from watching your hairline recede, you also it's a bit like, and I'm getting on in years. I don't mean it's like, let's give him an award, he's gonna die, but it's a bit like Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn attending their own funeral, hearing people talk about you that way. I didn't know I know Lance, and Lance and I, bullshit each other in bars all around the world, and Heather Langenkamp and I have, had cocktails everywhere from Sweden to London to New York and back, but, Heather would never I would never get Heather to say anything nice about me, She's always teasing me, and I'm always teasing her, and it's real strange and a little awkward and a little uncomfortable to, like, hear people talk about you that way. So when I first saw it premiered in Spain at the end of last year, it was a little strange. I mean, because you do see yourself, your physical physiognomy differently when you watch yourself on film. That enters your brain and you do dream about it. You dream that's why a lot of directors don't want actors to see dailies, to see rushes of themselves because you see yourself unedited. There's no editing. It's just the master shot or just your coverage over and over and over again without the other person listening to you or talking to you or speaking to you. And it's never going to be like that in the movie, but that unedited view of yourself can really haunt you, can really and it's the same thing watching a documentary, because to hear people talk about you and then to see yourself young and then old and then young and then old, it's a little disconcerting, but, I'm glad that they 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 agreed with me and we made it a movie about, an old character actor, a utility actor that survived for 50 years and what goes into that.
Well, thank you, by the way, for also answering a whole bunch of questions I already had planned that you were able to cross off. But I do want to know, since you are a character actor, many people might know you from Fred, what's his face?
That's his name, yeah,
Whatever his name is.
the guy with the guy that hates to use Clearasil, yeah.
Well, but do after watching the documentary, now looking forward, are there still boxes that you have yet to tick off, either of a character or like even a filmmaker that you absolutely adore that you just haven't gotten the chance to collaborate with?
There's been 1 or 2 directorial projects that have gone into turnaround. I think it's forever turnaround now. Uh, and that's unfortunate 'cause I spent a year of my life on one of them, and had everybody a lot of people promised to me, Christopher Lee among others, but, and you have to learn to let go of that stuff. I was supposed to do a really huge movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, a couple of years ago, a year in Spain. It would have been my sort of Klaus Kinski role, and it was never made, there was financial things, but, you have to let that stuff go. No, I mean, I regret that I never got to I understudied Iago in my youth, but there was probably a time in my 40s and early 50s when I could have done a hell of a job as Iago. It would have really taken, some prep, to get my chops back up to do a run, instead of just a one-off because I was so spoiled by film work by then. But that's a bit of a regret. But no, actors always say, what's your favorite job?" And they always say, "The next one." And that's true,
Yeah.
I have a wonderful little script I'm hoping to do in October. I have a little low-budget horror movie coming out with Danielle Harris, directed by my Phantom of the Opera director, Dwight Little, and I'm anxious to see that. I think there's a screening next month in Hollywood, so called Natty Knox, like
Cool.
Natty as in Natalie. Her real name is Knox, Knox, but Natalie Books. It's sort of the Freddy Krueger nursery rhyme. I love the hook of it. It's a scream queen, who goes back to her hometown. You
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great little premise. Well, and it's nice to see Danielle play a grown up.
Oh yeah.
I think it's her first mom role.
I do have to ask real quick, speaking of like letting things go and moving on, the future of, like Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm curious, just as a fan, would you like to see it be rebooted or revived in like the Halloween version where it's like a big budget type of legacy? Or do you think it should go to like an indie filmmaker or like something a little bit more experimental, something a little bit more unconventional?
Well, I certainly think that they should reboot 3 because they could do a kind of 3 has a sort of previously on Nightmare on Elm Street sense to it, and it reunites everybody, and it is the fan favorite. I think if you took a poll or a vote, you'd find out more people like Dream Warriors than any other film. So it's a good script. The original script for that is terrific, and if you look at who wrote it, it's like those people have Oscars now. Uh, and then I would love to do a cameo in it, maybe switch genders and play the Priscilla Pointer, Amy Irving's mother's role, the sort of skeptical, cynical therapist who doesn't believe they're all having a common dream, a dream in common, a nightmare, a collective nightmare. I think that would be fun, a nice wink at the audience. It's kind of traditional in a remake to, bring somebody back from the original. But, yeah, it's hard. I mean, I would love to see a sensitive, contemporary director, independent spirit, award-winning director or somebody reboot, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 and really explore Freddy's manipulation of the boy in that, and the boy's burgeoning bisexuality. I think with today, we could do that. We could deal with that and what's going on there, and, play with the psychology of it and Freddy's manipulation of that, and, and really make, that heroic. I think that would be interesting to do. I think we're ready for that. I don't know if there should be some new ones, original ones, if they should reboot everything. I'd love them to spend a little. I mean, to me, Nightmare on Elm Street is one of those films that does, in fact, beg for the new technology. The dreamscape, the landscape of the mind is such a ripe place to go with CGI. I think that would be fun. So that would require a bigger budget. Not Marvel level budget or effects, but I think imaginative. I remember years ago seeing that movie with Robin Williams when dreams make what the one with the paintings come alive.
Yeah, what yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that effect done today is probably much more enhanced and sophisticated, and I think that would be an interesting kind of effect to use as a segue into a nightmare, into the dream landscape. But yeah, I'm no fool. I grew up in Hollywood. They remake everything, and they're gonna remake it sooner or later, and, I think one of the tricks would be to find one actor that can go the distance, and play Freddy over and over again. But on the other hand, if you did have a big budget, I've always thought all people know about Freddy Krueger is that he's disfigured from burns, he wears a hat, he has a red and green sweater on and a claw. That's all they know. They don't really call it a fedora, I don't think. They don't go into great description of the claw, the glove, or the sweater, other than maybe the stripes. So the sweater could be a cardigan. It the hat could be an old frayed baseball hat. The claws could have huge blades on them like Wolverine or little tiny sharp nails on them. It could be leather fetish. It could be S&M bondage-ish. We don't know. Freddy could be taller. Freddy could be older. Freddy could be younger. Freddy could be shorter. Freddy could be fat. And everybody that has heard the legend, the myth, the story whispered about the locker room or at the sleepover party that hears about this Freddy Krueger who killed children. And, my mother heard and she said, and I heard daddy say, and blah, blah, blah. Now they've heard about it. Now they're infected and Freddy's in their subconscious. And when they fall asleep, he can enter them. But they only know those basic facts. So they could imagine a different Freddy. And then we would maybe reveal at the end the sort of uber Freddy that's controlling all of these dreams, but it's their subconscious that manipulates the image of Freddy. So you could have half a dozen Freddys, actors play Freddy, which would be fun, I think.
Well, sounds like you've got your next gig as a director of the next Nightmare on Elm Street, and the volume 2 of the documentary with all your dancing scenes.
Yes, my thing, yes. Ashi, Robert Englund in somewhat.
Really appreciate it. Congrats on the documentary.
All right, thank you, sir.
Bye bye.